I'm absolutely fascinated with the responses to yesterday's video. I'm really fascinated. And so I've done some research that I hadn't done in the past as a response to yesterday's video. And let me just tell you, there is more information out there by narcissists about narcissists than anything I could have possibly imagined. I don't think I've ever researched a subject where the subjects talk about the subject of the subject as much as narcissism. That is true irony. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And let me say from the outset, I am a certified leadership coach with the John Maxwell team. I am not part of the International Coaching Federation. I am not a licensed counselor. I'm not a therapist. I don't have a degree in psychology. My primary sources of information are, number one, the Bible, and then number two, a few books that I devour. I don't read anything precursory. I dig into whatever I study. So what I've posted in the text, what I intend to discuss in this video, this is not clinical advice. If you sat down with me as a coaching client and we were working through the stories in your life or the leadership principles in your life, this is the kind of conversation we might have about what does it mean to get healthy? What does it mean to get beyond this challenge in my life? And these are the kind of things that I would say as a coach and as a friend. But I would also say, if you feel like you're in a place where your life is in danger because of a narcissist in your life, or you feel like their influence on you is leading you to consider harming yourself or others, get professional help and do it now. Find someone in clergy, find someone who is a licensed counselor, and I promise you, if you go through my friends list, look for any of those people with doctor after their name. Bob and Polly Hamp are certified NLP. They are Christian and they are counselors, and they are absolutely qualified to help you in this area. Brady Daniel is absolutely qualified to help you in this area. Dr. Caroline Leaf, absolutely. Dr. Michelle Bankston, absolutely qualified to help you in this area. And any one of them I consider friends. Any one of them I would trust with my own life or with the life of someone in my family. Not even batting an eye. Dr. Johnny Kane would be another one of those I'd put right at the top of the list. He founded the Suicide Hotline with Dawson McAllister. These are people who are eminently qualified, significantly more than I am. But I'm going to take this on as a friend, as a leadership coach, and say there are a couple of things that you need to know just from the research I did yesterday. I listened to a fascinating interview on narcissism because the question came up, okay, so you pointed out that from a leadership perspective, narcissists do get into your workplace. And when they get in your workplace, they do things like elevate themselves and destroy everybody else. Absolutely true. Now, what do you do when it happens? That was the question that came back to me. So if I've been a victim or a target of a narcissist, what do I do? And I can tell you, I have never seen so many people raise their hand and go, I'm an expert on narcissism, as I saw yesterday as I did that research. But I did see one fascinating interview. And in the interview, a clinical psychologist, 24, I think she said, years as a professor at an elite university, sat down in an interview with a vlogger and basically laid it out. And she pointed out something I think is extremely significant. And that is that line of demarcation between narcissistic personality disorder and people who exhibit or exercise narcissistic tendencies, because some of those people do it intentionally because of the results that it gains, but they're not truly narcissist. The difference is a true narcissist has no empathy at all. They really couldn't care less how much they hurt you. In fact, they use the ebb and the flow of your wellness, of your healing, the ability to manipulate you to grand highs and traumatic lows as their own source of energy. They see you as a supply. They draw energy from you. They push energy into you. They draw positive energy out of you to find their own affirmation because you need them. They create a deeply codependent relationship, and they just suck everything they can out of you because that fills them up. At the same time, they will push you down, destroy you, hurt you, and then leave you in the corner just to see how long they can make you wait before they come back. That's damaging, that's destructive, and that's the sign of someone who doesn't care about anybody else. But then there are also those people who exhibit narcissistic tendencies, and some of them, well, they do it on purpose, but they don't do it to mean harm. They don't do it with any thought of how it might emotionally impact other people. They just realize that being self-grandiose, I mean, just take for an example, the idea of grandiose, of making myself bigger than I am, of projecting this wonderful success, of looking into the future. Are those things sounding familiar? The idea that I can be bigger, more powerful, more influential, more important than I am today? Well, of course they are. In the coaching process, when we tell someone to establish a vision for their life, that's exactly what we're telling them to do. Look further down the road than where you are today. Look at what you could be, what you want to be, where you want to go, and fixate yourself on that to the extent that it changes who you are inside. Well, that's a narcissistic tendency, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're a narcissist at heart. It's a narcissistic tendency to say, I have high levels of expectation for the people around me. When I text you, I expect you to respond. When I call you, I expect you to reply. When I need you, I expect you to be there. That's called a boss or a parent. And I'm afraid in some of the research that I did that those lines are really starting to get blurred. Are you a narcissist or are you a strong leader? I also heard this doctor saying, she said, one of the things that really baffles me is watching this new world of vloggers. And I'm going, hang on a minute, why do you got to pick on us? She said, no, think about the number of people. They have no other human relationships. Their whole world exists behind the YouTube camera. Everything in their life is driven by the fact that the world is watching them. And they have the ability to manipulate how you feel about them, good and bad. But their whole self-esteem is driven by the number of likes and the number of clicks and the number of shares on the bottom of the screen. She said that's some pretty scary narcissistic behavior. Because we're not talking about the idea of projecting yourself and then reaching for it. We're talking about living in a false world where you don't really have any human relationships or interactions. You're just counting on clickety, 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 click, and that's where you get all your self-esteem. That's a scary place to be. But we know people like that. I was reading just last night, someone that I've known, I guess now 12, almost 15 years, they were a victim of swatting. Swatting is when kids who play online games make a false report to a local law enforcement agency and have the law enforcement show up at someone else's house under the auspices that a crime has been committed there. And they were victims of that. The law enforcement team showed up at their house, guns drawn, had them laid out on their own front lawn under the auspices that there was a crime happening in their house. Do you know why they do it? Because the little narcissistic wieners on the other side of the screen are hoping that they'll catch the cops busting in to be seen on the live video feed of the online video game because the camera is sitting on top of the computer or on top of the television. And they're hoping that they'll get to capture that and record it and share the video so they can get 10,000, 20,000, 10 million views of someone else being swatted as the police broke into their home. That is extreme narcissism. And unfortunately, that narcissism is running rampant in our teenagers today. They don't care about the outcome, the impact, or the lasting effect. They don't care at all. They just want the attention. That's a dangerous place to be. So given that dichotomy, understanding that there are those who are truly narcissistic, they have a narcissistic personality disorder, they are driven by this ability to be grandiose, to manipulate the ebb and flow of relationship, they'll suck you in, they'll push you out, they'll discard you, they'll turn you away, and they thrive on your pain. and the ability to control you. And then on the other hand, there are those who have adopted some practices of narcissism because it leads them to the top of the food chain. It leads them to the top of success in manipulation, in business, in negotiating the art of the deal. Not necessarily narcissistic personality disorder, but narcissistic tendencies nonetheless. The good doctor made a very strong point. She said, listen, if you ever reach the point where someone says, I think I've exhibited some of these characteristics and I really want to change. I want to be a better person. She said, when that person comes to me, I know instantly there's a difference. They don't have this disorder. They may have adopted some of these practices, but because of that, they have a good heart and we can work through it. That's the difference. So given that difference, I want you to educate yourself. Trust me, there is a quagmire of information about narcissism on YouTube and other places you might research it. So I'm going to give you 2 books right off the top of my head, 3, that I will tell you right now you need to get. The first one is Who's in Your Room by Dr. Ivan Misner. Who's in Your Room is about how do you allow people in and out of your life, and then just assume that once they come into your life, their influence in your life is going to be there forever. It's a powerful book. It makes you ask some tough questions, makes you set some good door guards. The second book is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's been a phenomenal book in my life. It made a big difference in my marriage. The 3rd of September will be 25 years we've been together, but the first 10 years I put her through hell because I exhibited a lot of those tendencies. And we had the conversation this morning before I started this video. Am I doing better? Am I a better person than I was now? She said, yeah, you still use some of those tendencies from time to time, but look, if she's willing to call them out, I'm willing to change them. Seriously. And I hope that's a sign for hope. Boundaries in our relationship was the key to that. No questions at all. Necessary Endings is another great book. I believe that one, that's either Henry Cloud or John Townsend. I don't remember which one. I'm pretty sure Necessary Endings is Henry Cloud also. That's a great book. And then if you really are ready to transform who you are and how you think, grab Think Differently, Live Differently by Bob Hamp. It's a great book. It will challenge the way that you think. And I know there have been some upgraded versions of that. And he also does a Facebook discussion group and even live practices here in the DFW market if that's where you're at. But Think Differently, Live Differently. It's going to challenge everything you think you know about how you think. 3 steps, really easy. I know I'm way over time. I hope it's been worth your time to stay engaged with this. Get in the discussion. I mean, the reason I've moved this video on Facebook from a Facebook page to the discussion group is so we can have a discussion, but it's also because Facebook is changing their rules and I'm playing by their narcissistic rules. So here are the 3 steps. Number 1, set boundaries. Now, know this right up front. If you begin to set boundaries with a true NPD person, with a person who truly has narcissistic personality disorder, the minute you establish boundaries, they're going to violate them every way that they can because they don't give a rip what you think. They don't care. They don't care. If, number 1, reveals to you they're not willing to back off and establish and respect and honor your boundaries, then your only other option is to get out. That might mean quitting your job. That might mean changing your phone number. And a lot of the advice that I saw, if boundaries don't work, a restraining order will. And that's no joke. When my wife and I met, she worked at the East Texas Crisis Center for Abused Women and Children. And the number of times that we saw people violate restraining orders, and we had to put those families in safe houses that had nondescript addresses and nobody knew where they were. It would blow your mind. But once narcissism has eaten someone up, it's a powerful thing. So if telling them these are my boundaries, you've got to respect me, you can't talk to me like that, you can't treat me like that. If that doesn't work, get out, get away, get as far away as you can, cut off all communication and move along. Move on with your life. But the third and most important thing that you've got to do is you've got to stop focusing on the narcissist. That's their control over you. You've got to focus on a healthy you. And it's time to get a coach, get a counselor, get a good book. Start reading those books that I just recommended to you. Who's in Your Room, Boundaries, Necessary Endings, and Live Differently, Think Differently. Or Think Differently, Live Differently. Those books are going to change who you are. They're going to change how you approach relationships so that you can move on and be a healthy person in other relationships. I have a friend who struggled with this narcissistic behavior stuff for over a decade. My wife and I have been married 25 years, but the narcissistic behavior of her ex-husband still has some impact in her life. The thoughts, phone calls, relationships, encounters that are absolutely required in life, they still have an emotional impact. If you don't deal with this stuff, it's not only going to leave residue, for some people it's a lifelong bondage, and you will stay in it. So get out, get healthy, so you can get free. Establish your boundaries. If they won't respect and honor your boundaries, get away. And if you can't get away on your own, get legal help, and then get healthy. It's the only way you're going to deal with a true narcissist in your life. But do some research safely and understand there's a whole lot of talk about what narcissism is and the difference between narcissistic personality disorder and just the selfish and entitled behavior of our current society. It's a pretty scary border between those two. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Leadership team. If attitude is going to have a deep impact on your business and bottom line, make it a positive attitude with a positive impact. Visit jlorennorris.com/attitude hack